Hi guys, welcome for joining us today for Creativity. So we'll be just starting off now. So welcome everyone. My name is Rohit, and this is our session on creativity. As you guys know, we started off something to have a conversation with people who are doing something fantastic, really good in their work, and just to listen to them, what is their story of creativity and mindfulness and design and visual thinking is. So far we have done around 5 sessions of this, so you can check them out on our IGTV and also on our YouTube now. So if you go on YouTube and look for Rohit Soni, you can see our creativity sessions live recorded there as well. But today's session is really special. So I want to do this session for quite some time, and I was looking to do this because we had it's basically the session that you want to do with someone who is a designer and also a visual thinker, and of course if they're also like things about mindfulness, it becomes cherry on the cake. So at Doodle project we focus on three things. One is creativity, second is doodling, third is mindfulness. And today our guest who is joining us from Mexico is Ari, and her name is Ari Alvarez, and she's joining us today from Mexico. I saw her work and I was so interested in getting her on board for this session because she's been doing some amazing work, not in just one field, but so many of those, be it designing, jewelry designing, visual thinking, industrial. She's an industrial designer, and she has an extensive experience, in teaching industrial design. And then after that, she opened her own studio on visual thinking, and that's what she's doing now. And I think there's so much Ari is doing that if I start talking about it, the whole session will just go in that. So I'll rather have Ari to join us from Mexico and talk about her work than me talking about what she been doing. Gonna to join us, and she'll be us in next 2 minutes. Meanwhile, guys, if you have any doubts or questions, you can ask us here. And hi, I think I can see Ari. Hi, Ari.
Hi, hello.
So I saw, welcome to our session called Creativity.
Thank you for inviting me. And if you notice, I already have my tea here.
Cheers from India, Ari. So
Cheers.
That's how we do it. Yes. Thank you so much for joining. I saw Natasha saying hi to you.
Hello, Natasha.
So it's so good to see people from visual thinking field, coming and joining our chat. And for people who don't know, let me just give a bit about what I've been doing. So I'm also a designer. I did product design when I was studying in college, and after that I became a doodler. So I had this journey of becoming a designer and then becoming a doodler and then a lot of other things in between. So I studied in product design, and then I studied UX design, and then I started doodling. And Ari has a very interesting story of how she started off and what she has been doing. Okay, so before we move forward, guys, I hope you guys can hear my voice. So if you can, just give me a little thumbs up that you can. And Ari, can you hear my voice loud and clear? Are you able to understand my speed and the volume?
Yes, I understand perfectly.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so we're getting thumbs ups, Ari, so I think people can also.
Yes.
So I talk fast. My English is really fast when I talk, but when I talk to you, I think it just sort of becomes moderate in speak, in the speed, so that that'll be good for me also, that people understand what I'm saying. And I'll speak a little slowly, and you can speak at your regular pace. So I think that'll be good to go.
Okay.
Great. And for everyone who has joined us today, welcome, and feel free to ask any question if you have during our conversations. It's a very informal chat between me and Ari. And like I said, Ari has joined us from Mexico. What's up in Mexico, Ari? How are you doing?
Well, pretty much same. Everything else, like the whole world is happening. We are in a lockdown, and we are starting to reopen again and reactivating the economy. So that's what is happening in Mexico. Also, we are in a summer that is particularly not hot this year. So that's pretty weird, because if you notice, I'm wearing something not that light because it's freezing,
Mhm.
but it is summer. So that's what happens in Mexico.
Uh, yeah, it's and in India it's definitely summers. This is actually too. This is actually my sort of like a towards the winter clothing where I wear shirts. Usually I wear t-shirts. In India, it's summers are really hot. You might be knowing that. So that is what is going on right now. But it's pretty early for you, right? Like it's 8:30 for you in the morning there.
Yes, it's early. Here, everybody, it's Friday, so everybody is starting to work at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So people, it's up. I'm waking up early, uh, many days at my time, even though in weekends I get up early, because I like to start my day with a little ritual.
Mhm.
And I think when I accomplish that, I feel better in the day. So that's why I'm waking up early.
Correct. Yeah, I was just afraid that I'm waking you up early for our session, but I'm glad that you have been waking up early already, not for us. Okay. So you do so many things, Ari. Like, I'm going to start by all of them slowly. But the first thing that I want to start with is the wall that I see in your background, wall with graphics on that. So can you just like explain a bit
Yes.
about that? Let's start from your wall.
Okay. Well, I am a very curious person, and as you already said, I'm an industrial designer. But before that, before I becoming an industrial designer, I was interested in drawing and everything creative. Really, it's not just drawing.
Mhm.
So when I got married and moved here into this apartment, I envisioned something for my house, and I wanted a big wall that I could draw or do lettering, because I really love also drawing words. And I think it was really special if you do something in your wall and you can erase it. So that way you don't hang out into your ideas. You can erase them and you can create them again. But the blue one, the color was picked by my husband, because I wanted a big black wall, and he says, please don't do the black one, because we in this apartment we have a very wide and big windows, and the lighting comes in very wide. And he told me, if you put black, it's going to be awful for me. So he picked that blue. I wasn't that fond at first, but it kind of like me. And what you can see there, it's actually his annotations, his notes.
Okay.
He's the one that uses that wall mostly, not me. So that's a shame, but that's the story of the wall. It's a chalk wall, so you can paint there with chalk.
Wow, that's lovely. I think I'd love to have one where I can just go and doodle on the wall. And I have this little story I share with people that I used to draw on the walls when I was a kid, as a
Hmm.
kid, a lot with the pencils and pen, and I used to get scolded, a lot. My mom used to scold me
Yes.
that why are you spoiling the wall? How was growing up in Mexico as a creative person? Like, did you also get scolded like for spoiling the walls, or how was your journey when you were growing
No,
up?
well, because of the walls, I was scolded once, because I didn't know. Well, I don't know if I didn't know. I think maybe it was easy for me. I grabbed some crayons and do some doodles in my walls. Like the walls were like the ones that you are seeing here with texture. So the crayons were really difficult for clean up of from the wall, but it wasn't that really bad. My father, it's an engineer. It is not as bad as it sounds, but because he's the one that makes me wanted to draw. He showed me how to draw, how to paint. He was really good at painting. He's really good at painting, much better than me. And he was the one that started that. And my mother do a lot of things creatively. She's doing, for example, decorations for the home, and she sells that decorations for Christmas. So it was pretty cool with them. I studied in a school that was very creative, and they weren't really putting limits to the students. So I think my childhood and my school process was very good and very creative, and that's why I started to think about creativity, design, and everything else. You know? So it was good.
Wow, that's lovely. So where do you think like you get your sense of creativity when you were growing up? Like, did it come from, so in India, we get a lot of creative ideas from the stories, we hear from our parents. I used to like read a lot of storybooks in India, and I have so many memories of that, which comes out now when I doodle, in terms of stories and visual storytelling. So how did your visual storytelling got enhanced, and where do you understood that I'm getting inspiration from this place or that place?
Well, the thing is, in Mexico, I don't know if your audience knows something about Mexico, where we are, but we are in a very special place in the world because everything here is bright. We have a very bright colors, and our culture, our essentially culture, we are essentially culturing coloring because for example, the Day of the Death, it's in Mexico, is called Dia de Muertos. But I think you know the movie of Coco from Pixar, and it was really good, a really good movie because they could portray our culture visually, and that's the way I grew up here in Mexico City. It's a very big city, so maybe it's not that connected to the culture. But in our surroundings, we can find a little towns with these holidays and very rich culture, and it's coloring. So in my case, in Mexico, it's color everywhere. Even when you're supposed to be sad because somebody passed away, we are not sad at all because we understand that they are in a better place, and we can celebrate that. We can celebrate that they are in a journey, and we celebrate that with color, with flowers, with pictures, with a lot of things, with food, a lot of food, very good food. And that's how I grew up. In the school that I grew up also, we talk a lot about Mexico and Mexican culture, especially the culture that was before we were we were before the Spanish people get here. I don't want to talk about anything bad about them because it's not bad, but we were talking always about the very beginning of the culture in Mexico, and it's
Yeah,
very bright and it's very beautiful.
lovely. I think it reflects in the costume, the food, in the movies. I think it's sort of very reflective, and so the audience was also agreeing, and they're saying in India also we have a really rich culture, and
Yes.
it's very colorful. Like, it's amazing, like the amount of and the variety of colors that we use in India. It's mind-boggling. So I think that's where the synergy also comes in. I personally stick to black or blue. I don't know why. But India is very, very colorful. I think that's what, we are also like a very cultural society like that. And I saw a comment from a question from Natasha, and she's curious in knowing, are there any Mexican comics that she can refer to or can go and read, if you have any that you can suggest her?
I'm not sure about that in the moment. Of
Yeah.
course there are, but I'm not very. I don't know that for sure,
Hmm.
but definitely it is, because we have a lot of the cartoonist people.
Yeah.
Ruiz. He's calling Ruiz, Ruiz, Ruiz.
R-U-I-Z, I just write for you. R-U-I-Z, Z for Z, right?
Yes, I'm going
Okay.
to. I think it's in the chat. Yes,
Sure.
Ruiz. So you can doodle that. You can doodle
All
that. No, you can Google that, and you can find his doodles,
Yeah.
and he's really good. And but I'm going to try to look for somebody else, and if at the end of the meeting I can find out, I'm going to put here in the chat, and if
Sure.
not, I can send you the information, because there are, but they are not colorful.
Hmm.
His doodles are for the newspaper, so it's in black and white.
Okay.
So it's not really representative, but we have a lot of them. But I don't remember their names. Sorry.
Sure. I think definitely. Thank you. I think Nitasha already saw that, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
go and check that out as well. We have something called as Chacha Chaudhary in India also. We had a rich
Okay.
culture of comics. You should definitely check it out. They're like
Mm-hmm.
amazing. Okay, coming back, Aryan, I was just going through your stories, and the most the most important thing that came out from that was that you used to teach, in college, right?
Yes.
As a coordinator and as a faculty, and then it says that you had a little idea about what you were doing, but then you got the idea what you really wanted to do, like about your talent and what to do in life. We have an
Yes.
amazing audience who probably want to know the answer to that question, is how to find your passion and how to go forward with that.
Oh, but it's a good one, because it's not easy to find your passion. Even
Yeah.
though you think you found it, maybe you can change your mind, and that's the lesson that I learned. You can change your mind. Nothing it's in a stone anymore, because I'm really passionate about creative things, everything creative, everything that has to do with drawing. But no, it was not always like that. As I told you, I grew up with my father. He introduced me to painting and to drawing, but he was very not easygoing. He was, I forget the word, but I perfect. He was perfect. And he wanted my drawings to be perfect. So I grew up with a distorting image of drawing being perfect,
Mm.
and I noticed that my drawings wasn't that perfect, or as good as I wanted to be. So I tried to study visual arts, and I didn't like it because I thought I wasn't good enough. Then I find out about industrial design, and I became an industrial designer, and I love industrial design. But I was using visual thinking in the process, but I didn't know it was called visual thinking. Or even sketchnoting or visual note taking. I didn't know about the names, but I was doing it anyway. So when I was starting to working in my own project, or in the real life in my job, I was using it, and I never knew it was a thing. When I started to teach for my students industrial design subjects like drawing projects and methodologies, I like 10 or 11 years ago, I don't remember, I came across with this book for Mike Brody, that it's called Sketch Notes. So
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't remember, and I don't know how I acquired that book, but I started to draw, to read the book, and I was aware that I was doing that, even though I didn't know it was called sketch notes. So I came across with this information that it was really good for communicating, especially if you don't have the same language to others. And I'm not talking about the language as we are talking right now. It's not just the country language. When you are studying industrial design and you are talking with an engineer, you are not talking the same language. And it's very difficult for engineers to understand the design language, and the other way around, we can understand the language. So I find out that visual thinking was this language that could communicate, that makes me communicate better with them. But also I could teach this communication to my students in order for them to communicate to others. So that's where I started to find the true passion about visual thinking, but not noticing that I wanted to do that for the rest of my life, because I now I know that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. But I was experimenting this, I was teaching this, and then started to ask me to teach to other teachers about visual thinking and storytelling and design thinking. I did that. People understood me. People really like it, but also a lot of them were working in the industry. So I said, okay, this could be better. This could be good. It could be a good product for the companies. So that's when I started to think about resign my job, my full-time job for the last 11 years. And I said, well, if it's not now, when? So I did it. I resigned my job and I started to get shape to my studio. And 2 years ago, that's when I resigned and I started to do this and to try to teach companies, people, and everyone to do this.
Got it.
So, but it
And thank.
was because I noticed that.
Yes.
Yes,
So you observed that you were basically using visual thinking and communication throughout, and then you took it as a tool to teach to companies how they can also use it, and that's fantastic because it
yes,
resonates so much with the stories that we all of us has. Like I used to doodle. I didn't know you call it doodling. I used to call it drawing and then like sketching and stuff like that. And then I realized, oh no, it's actually called doodling when I saw it on the
yes,
internet. And then same with the visual thinking or visual harvesting, which I do now. So that's amazing. Like how much synergy are there in the stories. And I'm sure a lot of other people who are actually working as a visual thinker facilitators now will relate to that. So
yes.
thank you for that, Ari. And then I want to like quickly ask you some questions, which probably will uh, help us understand about you better. So, if you were to choose between visual thinking, industrial designing, and jewelry design, right? That's what also you do. Which one
Yes.
you'll pick and why?
Well, I will pick also visual thinking because uh, well, it's a tricky one, because because I'm an industrial designer. I understand better visual thinking. Jewelry design, I love jewelry design. If you can notice here, this is one of my designs. But I leave that business very long time ago because I was very interested in knowing more. And in jewelry, you are just doing things, and it's creative, but it's also a lot of work and not very. It's not a good paid job, so I didn't notice anything more about that. But industrial design and visual thinking, I think it's kind of the same. But if I have to pick just one, I will go visual thinking because it's the best way I can communicate with others. That's the only
Yeah.
reason. It's very difficult for me to communicate with words, but it's very easy for me to communicate with pictures.
Wow, and that's a really powerful line that it's really difficult to communicate with words, but it's easier, right, to communicate with
Yes.
pictures. Now, when you say it's easy to communicate with pictures, uh, there's so many people who think they can't draw. Uh,
And yes.
and that's one of the like a wall that comes in front of them. Okay, now I can draw. How do I think visually? So how would you like tell to people that, yeah.
Well, the thing is, that is also something that I learned from my father. Well, not from my father, besides my father, because when we think about drawing, you are thinking that you can't draw reality, real
Mhm.
in this technique that you have to draw perfect, and that's the thing that you need to leave aside. You can draw because you were a child once and you could draw that then, so you can draw. You need to overcome perfection, and you need just get a pencil and try to do doodles, to do marks, and you are going to notice that you can draw, because you can relate with not that perfect drawings, and
Yeah.
with perfection you are not relating with them. You are telling a story, but a different story. So when people tell me I can draw, I'm saying you can draw, and I'm going to show you how. And so you can do very basic drawings with spirals, and then you can come up with something beautiful through these spirals. And that is something that I learned from Explain people, and also for Sonny Brown
Hmm.
in her book Doodle Revolution, that you can always draw. And when I noticed that and asked and showed them to how they can draw, they overcome perfection, and they understand that they can draw, because everybody can draw. Not everybody can draw perfectly. That's other thing. That's something that comes with painting and a study for that. But everyone can draw. If you have hands or a mouth or a feet, you can draw eventually.
Wow, that's really powerful and it's interesting. That if you have a mouth, hand, and a leg, you can draw, and you might not be able to draw
Yes.
perfectly, but you can draw to communicate, and that power
Yes.
and that is really powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yes, I think
So
so.
I'm just going through some of the notes that I took when I was reading about what you do, and there is something I came across, and that's really nice, and says that you started planning your life, by being more mindful, and also you came across journaling as a tool to do that.
Yes.
So do you want to talk about that, because this is something very interesting that I read.
Well, the other thing that maybe you don't know about me is that I can't smell. I don't have a smell.
Oh.
I never have smell anything. I don't know what is that. But I couldn't smell because I couldn't breathe properly through my nose
Mhm.
when I born actually. So my
Okay.
father also taught me to meditate, and the very basic meditation, that is be aware of your breathing, be present with your breathing. And that's why I started to breathe better with my through my nose. So because of that, because I was really engaged in meditation, I find out again, maybe 10 years ago, that it was a better state for me, because life is stressful every day, and every
Yeah.
decision that you make in your life, it's sometimes it's stressful. So I came across again with meditation. I never stopped doing it, but I wasn't doing it consciously, you know. So when I started to research again about what mindfulness was, and different ways of meditating, I came across with journaling, that it's also something about to productivity, but I wasn't really interested in productivity, but leave everything that was happening in my head in other place. So I find out that when you journal your thoughts, you you relax your mind.
Yeah.
Your journal, your notebook, it's an extension of your mind. So I was very relaxed because I could know that everything that I was thinking about was in a place that I could review later, but I could rest and I could meditate and I could be with myself and just trying to leave everything that I should do or I have to do aside for a few minutes. So because I noticed that, I started to design my own because I love notebooks. I love physical notebooks, but they are not as comfortable as I would want because I forget them. I have everything in my iPad.
iPad.
So I designed my own journals for using those in my iPad. So that's why I came across with that concept, and also for designing those.
Wow. And that's something that I always believed into. And my journals looks pretty wacky, you know, they look like this. This is one of my
Yes,
my sketches
lovely,
that I
lovely.
put. And it's super crazy, you know, when I start just like sketching like stuff like this. This is basically a face, the things coming out of that.
Yes,
I just
yes.
do this as a first thing in the morning to put everything out on the sheet of paper on how I'm feeling, and after that I start to do uh, my my journaling part like this, which is also like this,
Mm-hmm.
which only I
Mm-hmm.
can read. So where do we can see your journals, Ari, if we have to?
Well, you can see them. I have another account, another personal
Hmm.
account that it's called. Um, it is my name, Ari Alvarez Garcia, but you can find it also as Happy Mindful,
Hmm.
and there you can find most of my personal journey, the one that I wanted to share because that I'm not into sharing something so personal,
Yeah,
but sometimes I can do that. For example, I can show you how my journals look. I don't know if you can see that.
I'll just turn off the comments so we can. Oh, wow, they look
That's
super detailed and
yes,
colorful.
and the
Wow.
everything is drawn in. And this is the other part here. Everything is drawn
Yeah.
in that app. So the app. It's called Note Shelf,
Okay.
and that's part of my morning. So in the morning, I try to remember how uh, everything that, or a little, some things that I'm grateful for, and some things that are bothering me that I don't particularly happy about, and some doodles that came across at that moment. It's not They are not perfect, but they inspire me through the day. So not all the day, not all days I do this, but I try to do that every day.
Yeah.
I tried, not accomplish everything. For example, today I didn't do that, but that's how I try to stay focused, but also
Yeah.
rest my mind because my mind is chatty. I sometimes I cannot sleep because my mind is talking, literally talking, and it's a way to shut up my mind. So that's how I do that and accomplish that.
Yeah. And I'm sure so many of us can relate to that. You know, like there's a saying, the mind is like a monkey.
I
If
think.
you if you just leave it loose, it
Yes.
wanders to the places, you know, you can't even imagine like that. So
And sometimes it's a mean monkey. Sometimes it tells you something that you are not good enough and you are not going to accomplish anything. And
yeah.
sometimes it's mean.
So I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because my next question to you, Ari, is in these times when
Mm-hmm.
we are like sort of bound to our homes everywhere in the world, uh, with a little idea about the future, how do you keep yourself, you know, mindful, and you know, how do you take care of your health and, you know, your mind? Do you use any tools for that?
Well, yes. The first one is not watching any news, because
Yeah.
news are poisoning right now.
Yeah.
So you need to be informed, and but that's another thing. And there's
Yeah.
a way to be informed. For me, it's Twitter. Twitter is better for having a little pieces of information, but that's
Yeah.
it. And but the other way I started to be creative and also accomplish things in this lockdown was just getting to create, to do the work. Because if you start to think about it too much, you are going to find a lot of ways of not doing it, a lot of excuses to not doing what you need to do or what you want to do. So I was experimenting a lot because I have nothing else to do because we were in a lockdown. So I was experimenting, but also I was getting in every webinar I could find out of every topic I found interested, even though the topic weren't or visual thinking or design or anything. Everything I could find, I was in. So I find out that I was very creative when I have a lot of information that could connect, because that's creativity. You connect
Yeah.
things that others do, because everything is it's created right now. So the best way for you to create something new, it's getting different connections. So I think if you can step aside of what you are doing in the moment and just try something new, something different, you can come up with very good ideas. So that's how I came across with the workshop that we took together, and that's
Yeah.
how I started to meet a lot of people around the world, having these kind of conversations. And that way I thought my day was accomplished. If I could find something different and meet someone different, for me was done.
Yeah.
Was the way that I was feeling creative, and not noticing that everything behind, no, everything around and outside my home is probably not that good. It's not falling apart. You could say at the beginning of this situation that everything would fall apart, but no, people are starting to do things. People are starting to be conscious about our situation, and but it's bad outside, so you need to be good inside. And that is also good, a good way of noticing yourself. If you are good in your inside, if you are calm in your inside, your outside world is going to reflect that. I find out that also. So that's how I
Yeah.
do. I don't know if it's good for everybody else, but it works for me.
Got it. So, three things which I could pick up is not watching news, connecting dots, which we didn't connect
Yes,
before, to be more creative, and just being good from
yes,
inside, like for our own self. That has worked for you.
yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. So there's a question which I'm gonna ask you now, and after that I'm gonna open our chat to the audience. So if they have any question, they can ask you or me
Okay.
together. And after that, there'll be some really quick questions I wanna ask. And I think, yeah, that's what we can do in the rest of our time. So, is there anything that you discovered about yourself in this time of lockdown which you didn't know?
Yes, that I'm good enough. That's something that I found, because it's really powerful, because I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought I should do more, and I should create more, so people could recognize me. And what happens in this lockdown is that I recognize myself, and that was the only thing that I should be focusing on. And that's what I find out, that I'm good at what I'm doing, but that I'm good enough.
Wow. So finding that you are good enough in this times, when these are so uncertain. I think that's like like seeing the silver lining in the great gray cloud, that good
Yes.
things are coming out of this time that we have. And I really like your approach towards your work and life, Ari. So, what is that one advice you can give to people who are young in design and who are just starting off as a visual thinkers? What they should focus on? If you can just like, what is your mantra to for life for them?
Well, I think the best advice I could give anyone is don't take it everything so seriously. Just experiment what you want. Design, if you are a designer, every kind of designer, because design, I think, doesn't have a label anymore.
Yeah,
If you are a designer, you already have a lot of tools for you to experiment. So experiment the ways in which you could communicate with others. When you communicate with others and you can understand others, you find yourself that you are more than you. You are connected to others. So I would advise you only experiment, don't take it too seriously, and have fun. Because when you are having fun, you really remember things, you really connect to things, and that's how you find your passion. If what you are doing is getting it makes you happy and makes you having fun, that's what you want to do the rest of your life. So if you can find that at very early age, you have ahead a lot of great times for living. So I think that's the only thing that you can be trying to come up with right now,
yeah,
I think.
definitely. Amazing. Like as far as you're having fun, you're learning, you're growing. I think it's good for you. Uh, so then we are getting questions, Ari, on the screen. But before that, I just want to ask one question, which is
Yes.
from my side, which is actually a question that came to my mind when I was listening to you. Uh, so as a designer, I like to jump on things, So I started off as an industrial designer, and then I became a UX designer, and now I'm a doodler. Uh, so how do we how do we know that this is something good for me and it's gonna last forever? Because there's always something that is exciting, the grass on the other side, the next project, or maybe something I haven't tried. How do we tell ourselves that okay, now this is what I'm doing is good for me, and that how do you take the decision as a creative person?
um that's very difficult, because
Yeah.
some days you can say this is good for me, and tomorrow you are saying no, that is not good for me. I think you are going to find that if most days in the past were good for you in that particular moment when you were working on that, that's something that you can focus on. Because as I was saying, not everything is it's in the stone anymore, so you can change your mind. But if you are enjoying that, just think about that in the present moment, not
Yeah.
necessarily to think about the future, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So if you think that everything is working on today, I think that's good, because it's going to work tomorrow. The tomorrow is going to come. You are not going to notice that everything is going to come, but you are going to be good at what you're doing right now. So I think that's probably the best way to approach that question. But it's
Yeah.
difficult, it's very tricky.
Yeah, but you're saying like it's what matters is like focusing on today if you're having fun, and just going on tomorrow and see if you're having fun tomorrow as well. Otherwise, nothing is carved on the stone,
Yes.
and you can always make choices. All right,
Yes.
perfect. So that was some words of wisdom from Ari, guys. Now the floor is open for you guys to ask questions. You can type your questions here, and Ari will try to answer, or if it's anything for me, I'll have to answer that as well. So,
Okay.
taking the first question, Ari, that's on, I think, on your forehead. It says, any
Yes.
book recommendation if you have for doodling? Wow, that's a good
Well,
question.
yeah, for doodling, I think you can doodle without without knowledge. So you can take your pen and paper and just doing it. But the best book I came across was the one that I already said, the Doodle Revolution from Sonny Brown,
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
she makes you to really think about what is a doodle, because a doodle is not just an unconscious, no, not unconscious, not a mark without a, I don't know how to say this, but well, people think that it's foolish to doodling, that it's childish to doodling, and it is not. It's something that is in your mind, but it's taking form. It's not necessarily formed yet. It doesn't have a shape, but definitely is there. So you can start to make shape to your doodles. So that's why I think this book is really powerful, and that's why it's called a Doodle Revolution. No, so that's one I came across, because the other ones is not for doodling, it's for visual thinking. So and it is not the same. So I think that book is one. It's good one.
Okay. So it's Doodle Revolution by Sunny Brown. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic book. Yeah, and I have to read that. Okay. Then the second question is from Neetu, and she's saying, how you focus on one thing when you have too much going on in mind? I mean, many ideas popping at the same time. Yeah.
Yes, that's also really tricky, because sometimes you can't and you have to deal with it. Sometimes you are not going to focus. But what works for me, it's breathe like 1 minute, be conscious in my breathing just 1 minute, and go to watch Netflix, something that pops at the moment, and started to watch that. That should be something that it pops, because if it's something that you are eager to watch, you are going to cut out with the program and you are not going to do anything. Something that distracts you, something that takes your mind aside, or it could work also with YouTube. And when you distract your mind, everything started to come in places. So you need to distract your mind of the chatting in your head, because the thing that you can't find focus is because you want to remember everything. But if you have everything in your mind and you don't have those things in something else, for example, a journal, you need to write down first. You need to take everything from your mind to a journal and leave it there, knowing that it is there and you can remember them later, and then distract your mind with something else. Because if not, your mind is going to get very chatty, but also mean. It's going to tell you you need to do this and this and this, and you are wasting your time. And you need to come up also with the fact that you are going to waste your time maybe for a half an hour, and that's it. That works for me, because my problem is that my mind tells me every time that I'm wasting my time, that I'm not doing enough for the day. So I say, okay, I don't care. I'm not going to finish today, but I'm going to try to be more, to try to accomplish one thing. And the only way I can accomplish one thing is focusing on that one thing. And I cannot accomplish, and I cannot focus on one thing if I'm distracted. So I need to be more distracted from my mind in order to focus more, maybe in a half an hour. But sometimes you are not going to get it. So, well,
Yeah.
I think we need to say, okay, that's okay. No?
Yeah, I think.
I think.
I think she said.
Thanks for
Thanks
the
for the reply.
reply. I will try.
So yeah, I
I will
think.
try. Yes, sometimes you cannot.
So my way of dealing with this, if I have too many thoughts in my mind, I go and take a shower. Okay, and when I come back, and I
Okay.
dry myself, I see what other thoughts are still with me, because what I'm doing is just like going into so I'm
Yes.
going into I'm
Yes.
changing my environment and just giving my body a different experience to make sure the thought is
Yes.
really important that it stick. The good point is it works.
Yes.
The bad point is I end up taking too many showers sometimes because there's still thoughts going on.
Yes.
So,
That could be a problem.
so, so try your own creative ways, guys, of experimenting with what Ari was mentioning. Like, be creative, find out how you deal with your thoughts by having different solutions, which can be very creative, but probably work for you. Like I have my own ways of doing it, some interesting ways. Ari has some ways. Try it out, and I
Yes.
think we'll love to see what works for all of you. But definitely agree. Like focusing on just one thing is really important, and there's a saying that how you do anything is how you do everything. So once you like do one thing properly, it just have a ripple down effect, and you end up doing other things well as well. All
Yes.
right. Great. So now, Ari, we know that you don't share too much on Insta Live, but we have some really cool questions for you, and I'm going to ask you the questions, and you
Okay.
can very quickly answer those. Okay.
Okay.
So, guys, also if you have any questions, please ask on the chat, and Ari will try to answer those. Okay. So, what comes to your mind when I say the following word? Okay. And the first word is India.
Oh, my next trip.
So are you
That is
sure?
going to be my next trip. Yes.
Wow, that'll be so much fun. There's so many people in India, you know already, right? So it'll be so much fun to meet all of them,
Yes.
like Natasha. Great.
Yes.
Your best
My best script?
trip,
My best trip.
travel.
Oh, ooh.
Yes.
Hmm. I think my best trip is always the last one. And the last one that I did was to
Hmm.
Asia. But I think the best, Cambodia. Cambodia was amazing.
Oh,
Yes, my best
mhm.
trip till now was Cambodia.
What did you like the best thing there? Like, what do you like in Cambodia?
What do I like?
Yes. What did you like in your last trip?
Um, well, the thing is, I love everything that has to do with Buddhism, but not religiously,
Oh,
just a way of life, because
yeah.
I don't have a religion. And I was eager to watch what was happening in the country with the religion. And I noticed a lot of great things, uh, the peacefulness that it was inside the temples in Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom. It, that's the thing I like it most, because it's a very peaceful culture, but also they are in peace pretty much all day long. So that's I think I love most about Cambodia, but also the architecture and the way the architecture interacts with nature, because it was really funny to hear that they were in a trouble because they don't know if they could take out the tree outside the temple, or get the temple outside the trees, because the jungle is eating the temples. But the ways that the trees started to interact with the temples, it was amazing. I have literally 1,000 pictures of temples and trees at the same time. I love it, and I like to draw that interaction. I think that's why
Wow.
I love it so much.
That's beautiful, I think. And I was just imagining it when you were telling about it.
Yes,
And I think it's a very beautiful picture.
yes,
Okay. What is your favorite
yes.
medium?
It is. Um, well, I have two. The first one, it's digital. It's because it's easier, because it's with me all the time. So when I have an idea, or I wanted to come up with some colors that could be interacting between them, I can do that in my iPad, on my phone. But the other one that I really really love, it's how this called? It's wash. It is in the same wash. I love wash because it's easier to use it with water, like watercolor, but not necessarily watercolor, or taking a lot of a painting and crossing. If you didn't like what you did, you can paint over and nothing
Oh.
happens. So that's why I love wash.
So it's called Wash, WSH, Wash.
I think it's with a G. It's
Okay.
GOUA. I think it's a French word. Gouache.
Cool.
It's GOUACHE. Gouache. I think it,
Gouache.
and I think it's
Okay.
for
Got it.
yes with G.
Got it. Perfect. I think that was the question which I wanted to know. What are the mediums you express? This is our time, Ari, and thank you so much for joining us today. I
Thank
think it
you.
was really insightful to listen to. Thank you so much. Guys, if you have any question, you can ask, do your message, DM to Ari. Ari, what is the best social media handle that they can message you?
Instagram. I'm
You have a lot
in
of them.
Instagram
So,
all the time.
yeah.
I have a lot of. I
And
know.
what's
I know.
your,
Sorry, I have 7. You don't know this, but I have 7.
yeah.
I only share with you 3, but but I'm 7. But it's in here in visual storytelling. It's the most that the one that I use the most.
Sure.
And the other one
Sure.
in my personal account, I also replied in Ari Alvarez Garcia. That is Happy Mindful.
Okay.
I also replied in that. But yes,
Sure.
both of them.
So that's the handle, guys. You have to reach out to Ari for any question. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Ari, for joining us. It was wonderful to listen to you about everything from designing to life, and I hope everyone has a really good time.
Yes, I hope that too. And thank you really for inviting me here. I really enjoy the time, I enjoy my tea, but I hope that everything that I share with you could help others to maybe
Yes.
experiment more.